Hi folks, how are you doing? A bit late on the video this week, sorry about that. This week we've worked on making a very basic humanoid character and adding an armature rig to it for animation purposes. So let's get to that and see how we get on. I was trying to find some way to do this in a kind of ruthlessly simple fashion, and I decided to use something called metaballs to do the modeling. So that's something you wouldn't have seen before, at least unless you were there on Saturday. But let's see how they work. So I've just deleted the default cube with X. I'm going to move to a front view, and I'm going to use the view menu over here to do it, because I often find I don't have a good memory of which of the views, you know, these kind of 4 views as I cycle through them, is front view. And for the rigging, it really helps to be in a front view. So I'm going to go to here and explicitly ask for a front view from the viewport menu there. And it's actually the one, it's actually the Y one without the Y on it. The green one there without the Y on it is front. But I wouldn't know that off the cuff. So I want to make sure that we're in front view before we start any modeling. So that, and the character is going to face towards us. So I'm going to add in a metaball. And I'm going to add a metaball ball there. And so far, so nothing. Just looks like a sphere, really. It's slightly unusual in that the grab, there's this kind of grab handle on the outside. Then you can click either that grab handle or you can click the ball, but it looks the same. So let's just, we're not going to go into edit mode or anything here now. We all do everything here in object mode. So I'm just going to hit G, Z, I'm just going to move that ball up a little bit, and I'm going to hit S then and pull out the scale a small bit. Now I'm going to duplicate that ball by creating a copy of it with Shift D, and I'm going to immediately hit Z so that the copy only moves in Z. Now watch where these two get close together. See what happens? They kind of blob into each other. So metaballs are really useful for quickly sort of building organic shapes. They have this unusual quality where they sort of automatically join when they get close. And smoothly flow from one to the other. So I'm just going to drop the second one up there so that now we have this kind of torso shape starting out. Let's duplicate this. Now you see now the difference between grabbing the handle there and grabbing the handle there. Here, because this is the first metaball, you end up kind of grabbing the whole shape. But really if I move, I'm only moving that first ball, but I also have the entire shape selected. But if I select any of the later metaballs with the ring, I only select them themselves. Also, so clicking on the shape is the same as selecting the first metaball. So if you want to move an individual metaball or duplicate an individual metaball, click on this kind of grab ring outside. So again, Shift D and Z to constrain Z. I'm going to move that copy up a bit. It's going to become a head. I'm going to S to scale it back a little bit. Then G, Z to move it back down, and Z again. And I'm just going to drop it about there. It looks fine. Now let's Shift D, duplicate that ball for the head, and move it out here to the side a bit. It's going to start to form an arm. So I want to scale it so it's a bit longer in that direction. That's no longer circular. So I'm going to S, X to scale in X, and just stretch it out a bit longer. Now it's kind of the shape we want. Just go to G again, move it away. But it's too big overall. So now that I've scaled it out in X to get the shape I want, I'm just going to S again to scale it back. And maybe SX again just to give it a little bit more stretch. Something like that. I'm happy with that. Okay, so let's G and move that into place. And now it becomes the kind of shoulder and upper arm of the character. Somewhere like there. That looks good to me. Let's grab it. Let's grab that one again and Shift D, duplicate. We want to use this for the lower arm now. So again, the overall kind of shape is good, but I'm just going to hit S and just bring it back down in size a tiny bit. G again to move and drop it into place. Now we've got a lower arm. And then finally we're going to get a circular one again, a spherical one again. I'm going to just copy the head, Shift D, bring it over, S, bring it down quite small, G, and just move it into place there at the end to give us a sort of a hand. So let's just look at that. I kind of feel like these are all a bit big still. So maybe I'm just going to hit there S and scale it back a little bit. S, scale it back a little bit. G, move it over. G, move it over. And G, move it over. There, I think that's a bit better. yeah, felt a bit out of proportion before. Now, let's quickly make a leg. So I'm going to take these three together. So holding down, clicking on the first one, then hitting Shift to grab the other two as well. And Shift D to duplicate them. Let's bring them down here. Then OR to rotate till they're almost vertical, but not quite. Just over at a slight angle, like that. Just pointing slightly, going slightly right to left as it goes down the leg there. And then let's just S to scale them up, sorry, not D, S to scale them up a little bit, just make them a little bigger, because it's a leg, not an arm. And G, and we're going to move it in there into place as a leg. Not too bad. Now, let's pop into a side view here. Let's click on this red circle there to look in from the side. And this foot, now we're going to need to just shape it longer in this direction in Y to make it look more like a foot. So S, select it, and SY to stretch it out a bit. Now, of course, it's in the wrong place. So G, and we're just going to move it to there. Now we've got a very basic kind of half person. But there's another two things we're going to do. Just click that red circle again to go back into the side view. We're going to put a slight forward bend on the knee. And then we're also going to put a slight backward bend on the arm. This will help later on with rigging and stuff. So I'm going to grab this upper leg and I'm going to hit OR and just rotate it a little bit anti-clockwise like that. And I'm going to select the lower leg and OR and rotate it slightly clockwise like that. Now if you needed to at this stage, if it starts to look kind of a bit wrong, you could hit G and move stuff a little bit, but actually that looks pretty okay to me. Now then let's go to a top view, click on the Z there and look down from the top. Again, I'm going to select the upper arm, I'm going to hit OR and give it a little clockwise rotation. And maybe G, I'm just going to move it back a little bit as well. Then the lower arm, OR, give it a little anti-clockwise rotation like that. G, let's just check the position, that's not too bad. And then the hand, just move G, move the hand back there so it now kind of just flows from the upper arm a bit. That's much better. So now that's got a nice sort of natural bend to the arm and to the leg. So we've got a nice half a character now. So what do we do with it? Well, it's metaballs, so we can't really do anything with it at the moment. But so we need to make it into a mesh. So select the character by clicking on the whole thing, by clicking on it, on the solid piece here, or clicking on the ring for the first metaball. Either or, same difference. And let's go to Object and to Convert to and choose Mesh. And what happens is all of those metaballs vanish and we now just have a very standard mesh. If we hit Tab to edit, you can see all of the nodes, all of the vertices and edges and faces in there. So that's it. So let's go to, let's just adjust this a little bit. Let's go to, actually let's cut it in half first. So what I want to do is I want to add, back in object mode, let's add a new cube, mesh cube. And I'm going to tab into edit mode for that cube. I'm going to move the cube 1 in X, so GX1, and hit enter. So it's now exactly on the middle line there. And then I'm going to just hit S and make it, sorry, I'm going to change the center of scaling to the 3D cursor there. And I'm going to hit S and just keep scaling it till it's bigger, completely bigger than the character, and then just tab to return back to object mode. So we're going to use this cube to cut the half with no leg and arm off of this character model, just to kind of slice it away so we get a kind of perfect half person that we can then mirror over. So how do we do that? How do you use this cube to cut half of, so we want everything basically that's now inside the cube to be removed. So selecting the character, we go to the modifier panel and we add a Boolean modifier here. Boolean modifier. And we want the difference between this character and the cube. Basically we want only what is outside the cube to be left. So we want to select that cube object. So you can either pick it off the list here, cube, there's only 2 objects in the scene so it's easy to find it, or you can use the eyedropper and actually point at it in the scene. And you can see immediately that has removed the part of that character which was inside. Now this is non-destructive at the moment because it's just done with a modifier, but we're going to make it permanent by clicking the little down arrow here and hitting apply. And now it's permanent. And now we can click on the cube and hit X to get rid of it. It's done its job. We've used it to cut the character in half. So we could put a mirror in here now straight away, but because we have this face on the inside of the character, we would end up with a weird looking seam down the middle line, which we don't want. So let's first go in, select our character and go into edit mode, and if that sort of n-gon in the middle of your character is not already selected, go into face select mode and click on it to make sure it is selected, and then just hit X and faces and just remove it so that it's kind of looks hollow. That's what you want. Then come over to the modifier panel, add a mirror modifier, and let's just return to object mode. We've now got a mirror modifier, so we've gotten a perfectly symmetrical character now. And again, we want to apply that mirror permanently. So just go and hit the little arrow there and hit apply. So now we have a perfectly symmetrical character that's looking good for our kind of shape of our character. The only thing is I recommended the last day, and I think we should do it again, is I just open this side panel here with N, or hitting the little arrow here, and just go to the item tab. If you look at how big your character is right now, it's probably huge. See, it says 11.4 meters, so it's really, really big. So what we're going to do is just correct the size of it a bit. So let's just hit S and just scale down your character until the Z size is about the size of a real person, which is about 1.7, 1.8 meters for kind of an adult. Something in that kind of range. 1.8 is about 6 foot, so 1.7 is more like my height. So something like that. So that's just a good practice. This is how you can measure real objects. And now that you've scaled it down, we'll just apply those object transformations permanently by going to Object, Apply, because this is now applied as a scale, and it's nice to if we apply that transform, it will kind of become permanent, and these scale will go back to 1. So it's no longer treated as if it's scaled, because sometimes scaled objects they behave funny in Blender. So the last thing I want to do is again tab into edit mode, A to select all, G, Z to move it, and we'll just move it up to his feet are just resting just approximately on the ground there on the red line. That's pretty good. His feet aren't super flat, so I'm happy with that they are cutting through a little bit. It looks good to me. Okay, tab, back into edit mode. Alright, so let's name this character, and we'll call it Humanoid. And we can start now to rig this human. Let's build a rig for this system, for this character. So we're going to go to Add and Armature, and that's going to add in an armature, single bone armature. So when we're working with bones, it's always a good idea to change them so they always draw on top of the meshes. Otherwise, it's hard to work with them because they become hidden inside. So over here in the object properties, we scroll all the way down here to Viewport Display and click the little arrow to open it up. Just click the in front, and then it'll always be drawn on top of everything else. So even though it's actually on the inside. Alright, so let's go back to our front view again. So now let's go to edit mode with that armature selected, and let's hit A to select everything and G, Z to move it up until the base of that bone is kind of stomach level approximately. Let's then just click on the end of the bone on its own and G, Z to move that one down until it's just about kind of below the neck. So that's our kind of first bone. So let's select it here, go to the bone panel here, this little green bone, and let's just give it a name. I'm going to call it torso. The names don't matter, but it helps if you have names that make sense. So let's again select the top of that bone on its own and hit E, Z, and just extrude out another short bone just kind of below the head, and that bone we're going to call neck. And again, select the top of that neck bone and E, Z, and extrude another bone out to the top of the head, and select that bone and call it head. Then, starting at the bottom of the torso bone, do E and just pull a bone out across like that to the kind of top of the leg and select it, and we're going to call that one pelvis. But we're going to add a dot or at the end to say that's the right hand side of the pelvis. You'll see we're going to do that on all the bones that are on kind of not down the center line but on one side of the body, and you'll see why in a bit. But pelvis.or. The names don't matter so much, but the .or, it definitely matters. So make sure you have .or on all of the names on the bones that you want that are on this side of the body, if you like, not on the center. So it's fine for head, neck and torso, they're all down the center line, that's fine. But for ones that kind of on one side, put the .or in. So again, selecting the bottom of that bone, I'm just going to go E and extrude, E and extrude. I'm just going to extrude that twice. Once to the knee, once to the ankle. Going to select those in turn and call them upper leg .or. And selecting the second one, lower leg .or. And I'm going to select this bone here at the top of torso, the bottom of neck. I'm going to extrude. I'm going to call that bone shoulder.or. And again, I'm going to select the end of it and E to extrude to the elbow, E to extrude to the wrist, E to extrude to the end of the hand. And select those in turn and call them upper arm.or. Oops, didn't get it right. Try that again. Upper arm.or. Lower arm.or. and hand.or. And then finally I'm going to go into a side view here, click on this red circle here, and I'm going to select the foot, the ankle bone there, and I'm going to E and pull another bone out to the tip of the foot and select it and call that one foot.or. Now we've got a set of bones running up and down the right hand side of the body, but because we were looking in this front view when we aligned them, the alignment on the side view isn't so good, so we're going to go to a side view here and start tweaking these just a little bit. So let's just grab that bone, that sort of end of bone at the knee, just hit G and just move it forward a bit, and maybe position that ankle bone back a little bit. Again, G and just move that pelvis bone back a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the neck bone back towards the back of the head and the top of the head there front, because our necks tend to bend from the back of the head here and not really not kind of from the center. So I'm moving that little point back, and then I'm going to go to a top view there by clicking Z, and I'm going to again grab this here for the elbow and G and kind of move it more. I can see now kind of where the middle of the elbow really is from that angle. Again, selecting the end of the hand, moving it to the end of the hand, and G, just moving the elbow there. So now the bone is down, matches the model better. We couldn't really see that from the front, but now that we've kind of just checked it from another angle, it's obvious where that should be. So that's a kind of a half a rig. Pretty good. It's actually pretty good. I might do, yeah, no, it's fine. It's grand. It's good. So now we want to create, that's the right hand side made. How do we make the left hand side? Thankfully there's a way to do it super easy, and this is why we made sure to put it into this front view earlier on. So let's select all of the bones by hitting A and go to armature and go to symmetrize, and lo and behold, for every .or bone we had on the right hand side, we now have the .l bone on the left hand side. So now we've got the full rig and we only had to do half of it. So that's groovy. So now we've got a rig and we've got a character, but we don't have them joined together, so we need to do that too. So that's easy. Let's return to object mode, and so let's select our humanoid first. Actually, this is easier to do on this over here, so I'm going to do it over here. So select the humanoid first, then holding the control key down, select the armature as well. So now we've got the humanoid selected and the armature selected, but the armature is active, so that's That's important. So now we go to object. And that you wanted to make sure that it's the armature is the bright orange one and the humanoid is the dark orange one. That it's the armature that's the selected one. If I did it the other way around, if I selected armature first and then humanoid, that would be wrong and this won't work. So you have to make sure you select humanoid first, then armature, and then you get it the way you need it to be. Then go to object, go to parent, go to armature deform and with automatic weights. That one there, and now they're parented together. Now you look at armature here, and you see that humanoid has become a child of it, but it's more fundamental than that. There's also now a special modifier, an armature modifier placed onto humanoid, so that when you deform the armature, you also end up it will cause this humanoid to deform. So you bend the armature's arm, and the model's arm will bend too. If you look down here, you'll see there's a whole bunch of vertex groups as well that have been defined, and these basically, let's go to, you've never seen what a weight these groups look like, but if you select each of these, it basically shows you which part of the model that that moves with them, and that's what the automatic weights was building. So you see the hand is completely controlled by this bone at this end where it's red, and this little bit of the arm is slightly controlled by it, but that bit of the arm is also controlled by the position of this, so it's a sort of a mixture of the two. So that's what these weights are, and you can actually, if you were building a professional model, you could actually go in and start painting these weights a bit more, or changing them, or lightening them up in places, so that, you know, a bone would affect some part of the model more or less depending on what you needed. We're not going to have to do any of that, I just wanted to see that it existed. So I'm going to go back to object mode. I'm going to select the armature, and then let's give it a little test. Let's go to pose mode, and let's select one of the bones, and just hit R to rotate it, and just see that the model goes with it. Just hit right click then just to cancel. So it's behaving the way we want. The only thing is the center of rotation is currently set around the origin, so I'm going to change that back to bounding box center. It's easier for this. But yeah, just try a few of those. Don't save any of them. Don't save any of the rotations. If you want to remember to look in, if you want to bend something, let's say up that way, then remember to look in from the side before you do your rotation. That's where it'll bend the way you want. Then it'll bend this way in this plane. So that looks like it's behaving itself quite nicely. So that's our rigged character, and that's quite nice. So I'm just going to save that file. You'll also remember that I exported this character and brought it into Mixamo. I'm not going to show that now, but that was a way to get an automatic character that just kind of, you could apply motion capture animation to a character without even having to rig it. So without even having to build this armature, you could take just the humanoid model and export it and bring it into Mixamo, and just as long as you tell it where the chin, I think the elbows, the wrists, the knees and the groin are, it will build a rig automatically on top of that character. But it needs these bends in the elbows and knees to be able to figure it out. That's just a side thing. And Mixamo can use that. So I might consider putting a link up to a breakdancer video that my wife and I made, just as a bit of fun in Blender, using this kind of rigged humanoid, but applying a breakdancing motion capture to it from Mixamo. So I may put that into the post. I'll think about it. Alright, thanks folks, and I'll see you on Saturday. Bye.